3, 2, 1. Lindy McDonough, nice to have you on the podcast. Hello.
Hi, Lauren. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. And you're looking very 60s dreamy, long bangs vibe
These
today.
are my quarantine bangs. Here they are.
I
have
them.
a lot of hair right now. It's very long.
It's very like goddess, Scandinavian goddess. I just need to give a little rundown to our friendly listeners out there. So I know Lindy because of the fashion calendar. We've met. I think we met at like a men's trade show a bunch of times. And then we like started hanging at the women's trade shows because we're the kind of people who kind of like, we don't quite, I mean, we are women, but we don't quite always fit into the women's fashion world because of how we are and
our penchant for boy dressing. Yeah, totally.
Penchant for boy dressing and vintage things and figuring out how stuff works. So we just kind of started hanging out. And so Lindy makes beautiful objects, mainly out of leather. And
leather. Yes,
she is the queen of Rhode Island's leather makery in my eyes. You this year, I feel like the theme of this podcast today is going to be evolution, the changing tides, and metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis.
Yes, which seems to be the theme of 2020. Let's talk about you founded and were the creative director of Low Tough Leather.
Yes.
Which you built, with your partners, such a beautiful company. Was that 10 years that?
Yes, would have been, we started in 2010, so it was 10 years this year. Yeah.
Nice.
I started it when I was with them when I was a wee 22, so I was very young at that point. Pretty young, but learning a lot. I went to RISD in Rhode Island here, so I'm from here. I'd lived in New York for a little bit and then came back and have been kind of a leather worker and maker ever since. So I did design, the creative direction, and started it, and we built a beautiful company of beautiful objects and beautiful bags that we handmade all in house. And it was an amazing experience, an amazing way to start. And then also, and now I'm starting something new.
Yes, that's the most exciting thing is you are starting a new project called Lindquist, which is your mother's maiden name. And where Lindy comes from, apparently, that you just told me. Tell me about that. Tell me about.
Well, it's my Lindquist is my mother's Swedish. My dad's from Colorado, and my grandfather, they called him Lindy. His last name was Lindquist. So sweet. But they called him Lindy, and I was named after him. And Lindquist has always kind of been this idea kind of swirling around in my head that would be the name that I wanted to use and the family name, I guess.
Yeah.
And Lindquist object is kind of Lindquist, but then looking at, the objects that we're going to make. I founded a new studio in East Providence, Rhode Island. We have a beautiful space, which I'm in right now.
This is where you are right now.
Yeah.
For people who are listening right now, I just need to visually describe what's going on in the background. It's like you're in this really tall brick warehouse-looking building with beautiful natural light everywhere. It looks huge, by the way. Can just describe it for
tall.
us?
Well, it was not very bright and airy when we got it, but we put in windows. It was all boarded up, but it's a very tall. It was a tree pulp factory before. It's on the river, so they would float the wood down the river and then pick it up and then turn it into tree pulp here. That's my understanding of the building. And then it's very tall though, which we just got a wood stove and we're getting some fans to kind of keep it warm in the winter.
It's getting cold, isn't it?
It's very, I know Lauren's like, I don't know what cold.
It's cold these days. Yeah. Winter is
going to get cold. It is here, but we're going to keep it real warm, really, for the Swedish word for huga, to kind of like keep it warm and tidy here in the winter. But the space is, we found the space and then it kind of everything evolved from there. And we have this, an ability to kind of space out in this time when it's important to kind of keep our distance from one another. And eventually this front space will make into a little store. But in this space, we manufacture everything in-house. So we have a wood shop where we're going to be doing some furniture pieces.
Oh, nice.
And yep. I have a chair that is going to launch in about 3 weeks that I've been doing with a friend of mine. Yeah. I do obviously the leather elements of it, and then he's doing the woodworking. And then we do all of our leather production here as well. So we have a full kind of artisan leather shop as well.
How many people? So how many people you have in there right now?
For us right now, it's only going to be 5 of us in the beginning.
You say only 5. I'm like, that's quite a lot of people already.
No, it's 5. Yeah. There's 4 of us that do production because we make it all in-house. So we need a certain number of us to actually make it all. You guys would be waiting a very long time if I was doing it alone. But there's 4 of us that hand make the bags. One of which is my husband, Connor. And he's kind of our engineer brain of the operation. He does all of the keeping the equipment tuned and keeping us very efficient, but and also kind of making all the equipment run really perfectly. Mm-hmm. And then I have Kate, who's my head of production, who does stitching and assembling the bags, and then Emily, who does all of our edge work and painting as well, and then myself. So it's just the 4 of us making stuff, and then I have one. My friend Kat, who helps us with sales and the website and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What a team, man.
Yeah, it's a great team. It feels really good.
Every single part of that team is so essential as well.
So essential.
Yeah, so essential. I feel people. Yeah, I'd love you to take us through the kind of process that, is involved with making one of your leather pieces. I know from Low Tough that, a bag that can look very streamlined and to the untrained eye, very simple, can be the most complex, time-consuming, incredibly so many levels to the process. Can you take us through one bag? And also after that, I'm so curious as to what design wise are you looking at, the direction of your new project?
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, my aesthetic as a designer is always, I try to do things, make things that look very simple from the outside, but are made really beautifully. So, and that's actually what you were saying, incredibly challenging, because you can see every single detail and everything has to be considered, So if you're trying to do it in the simplest way possible, that means every piece has to kind of shine from the handle. If it's one whole piece, I think, my previous aesthetic of what I was doing, we were definitely a little bit more in the heritage kind of bags that were, kind of these really bags that you could have forever. And they're a little bit more on the traditional side, which was amazing. Probably moving towards our new company, it's a little bit more minimalist and simple. And we're going to be doing these kind of, smaller runs of bags that are, I've kind of taken a lot of the stuff out of them. They're very simple in the new ones. They're thinner lines, a little bit more, like when I make one of the bags, a lot of my bags on the new ones don't have any side seaming, which you don't really notice when you're looking at it, that there's no seaming going around. The seaming is all hidden behind the handles, and the handles become the side seam. So I kind of, with the new one, I took kind of traditional bag making of like, you have a front, you have a handle, you have a side collar, which a lot of bags are kind of the same. They're like in terms of construction and structure. But when you start to actually like, all right, my prompts for the new company are like, well, if we get rid of side seams, how do we make a bag that way? And then my next one was, well, if we take apart, and kind of how do we take this one thing and then deconstruct it down to what its like simplest form can be. And that's what I've been doing with the new project. And it's been really fun. And we're having a lot of fun in terms of the pattern making and kind of doing pattern making that's like pretty unexpected and stuff that really, and it's been really cool. It's having a little bit more, kind of taking a little bit more risks with the pattern making, but also, doing things that are a little bit weird and a little bit
awesome,
unexpected.
Man. I think pattern making, like I don't know anything about leather pattern making, but I know quite a lot about, clothing pattern making. And dude, pattern making is everything. It's like, for people who don't understand what pattern making is, it's just geometry in practice, in real practice. And it's figuring out how to make a 3D object from pieces of paper, from flat. And it sounds daunting, but the more you do it, the more, I don't know about you, but when I make patterns, I'm more like hands-on and just
Me too.
Trial and error. And then suddenly you get something. Yeah. Tell me.
It just one of the bags that we made this season, it's called the Onda, and it's essentially every single piece in it is a different pattern piece. There's not, like a lot of times with bag making, because you're using dyes and all of these other kind of pieces of equipment to, you have to kind of have some repetition in the pieces. This bag, every piece, there's, I think, 17 pieces of it. Every single piece is different. Every panel, everything. And it was one of those things that you couldn't just sit and draw it. You had to actually make it. I make everything. My process is I make everything out of like a heavyweight canvas. And then I essentially cut it apart and then stitch it back together and then like see the shape. And then I'll take it apart and put it back together and cut pieces out. And it's essentially like the way you would do like draping or something and then I sketch on it and like cut pieces out and then put it back together. But it's usually about how to take something, once you kind of get the shape to be kind of you're like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. The Onda has 2 different size straps. It's a bag that has one strap that's small and one that's long, and they loop together and become like a shoulder carry. And but it shouldn't make any sense because it's asymmetrical, which in bags is not really, but it's also deeply symmetrical when you put it on. It's like really interesting.
Wow.
It's like a piece of origami or
sounds like a haiku. Or like, it sounds like just right now my brain's exploding a little bit. But I had this thought that, I've really thought that creativity is only possible when you have a very strict kind of framework to work within, and to kind of, I feel like if you don't have a strict framework that is your kind of like, for leather work, it's like the geometry and the traditional kind of construction method. If you don't have that kind of framework, there's no room. There's almost like too many options to like to make new stuff from. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but
I do. I think there's, and this is such a like interesting thing. I think once you know the rules necessarily, like how to make something, whether it's a jacket or a tote bag, and you kind of have the fundamental rules. And I think my kind of foundational experience before gave me this really great, understanding of truly how to make some of these things. And then you can take that knowledge and then that just takes time. And then you explode it and can kind of rewrite it and make decisions about, the way something's going to look aesthetically without compromising, the quality of it or or if you are like the integrity of it, or if you are, you're actually making that conscious decision to do that, not just because you don't know how to do it, which is also an interesting place to be as well. Yeah, totally. And I think that's what's really exciting. And what I'm excited about now and exploring is, kind of what, my background before is I had a background in furniture, and I teach furniture at RISD. Now I teach design for production. And what's interesting and for them, and especially for students, is like, you're still learning all the language and all the, you're learning how to make things, and you're still kind of on that quest of like, there's a certain level of, needing to learn and get kind of experience. I think for most people, like it would be interesting to make people, to have people make, in these classes, we have them make like a chair, or we have them make, kind of these traditional things in the beginning, just to like get, and then you blow it apart. Yeah. And you're like, is a chair, do you have to sit in a chair? I don't know. Like, yeah,
totally. You can't blow something apart unless you know every step of the construction of it first, for sure. Like, you gotta be real comfortable with that.
I think the bag making is interesting. I've made a lot of bags in my career at this point, and it's, they're basically, you have your pattern, and then you go through process of, there's stitching, there's things that hold it together, and then you kind of can decide at that point, like how little of that to use or how much of it to use. And we've been kind of playing with that in this room now of like how little, can we, how little can we kind of do? So it's still this like beautiful thing that's going to age and be with you forever, but, still be incredibly simple, but also sometimes makes it incredibly challenging to make. But, it's besides the point.
I can only imagine. That sounds like a lot of like trial and error maths. But I'm curious, what's your creative process like when you're designing bags? Like, it's not like with fashion, with clothes, where you, like every 6 months you have to like make a new collection, or like how are you doing this, and like where do you get the inspiration from to make the new designs?
My new process has been kind of interesting. I've been, for the last 6 months, I've been kind of changing the way that I work a little bit, and trying some new things. Typically, which sounds like kind of, I love to sketch. I sketch in the morning, usually like most mornings. I try to at least get like a couple like things out. It's kind of like, for people who write or like whatever, it's my that. It's my that. And typically I do like exercises where I usually think about a person and then I sketch, which is like kind of weird and kind of interesting.
You get a person, you make them into a bag.
Yeah, essentially. That's essentially what I do.
I love that. It's like this person, this friend of mine has a pumpkin head. I'm going to make a pumpkin bag. So I was just thinking about Halloween.
But you know what? It's like cars are kind of made by like to look like people, which is like kind of interesting.
They have little faces on the front.
They truly have faces and have things. But the new, I feel really, some people really, and sometimes I find it really, I get worried when I tell people that they are the ones that I sketched for that bag. I'm like, are they gonna think this is so weird?
do you ever like show them the sketches?
No.
That would be hilarious. You should make a book.
I should start including it in it. But I do these like extra, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I can't.
Sorry, your face doesn't work in a bag.
It doesn't even. It's like a
Love
really
that.
weird thing that I do sometimes, and you can see it. We name a lot of our things sometimes after the people, and so like so I'll call them and I'll be like, so I made this bag essentially for you. I really hope you like it. I'm like, but
That's really sweet though. That's so sweet because you're really boiling like someone you care about or someone in your monkey
yeah.
sphere, and you're including them in your art and your work, and you're making the essence of them into a bag that lives on forever. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. I just like, I'm really into, I love getting, kind of the inspiration from them and then kind of the embodiment. And sometimes it'll like take a turn to something weird, but usually people are pretty okay with it, which has been kind of interesting for the new projects. I had to like call people the week before and be like, is it okay that I do this? But they've all been very like loving and accepting of it, which is cool.
That's so sweet. It's like
Yeah,
it's
and
like when it's almost like writing a story that's like character based. You're like putting a story together and all the characters have become your objects. It's such a nice way of thinking about it, really. Like I'm quite touched. Yeah.
I like, it's just like, it's a cool process to doing that. And sometimes it's even, I think about people that I don't know, like artists or
Nice.
like things like that as well. Like one of the bags I did this season is called the Form Bag, and it's based on Cressida Ramberg's paintings and also her and I think she used to make torsos of women into geometry. That was kind of her language of painting and printmaking, and one of our bags is essentially like, it shouldn't make any sense. It has holes all over it. Probably,
Oh,
you know what
I
I
saw
mean?
that. It's beautiful. Yeah. I love
It's
it.
like a lot of people, it's like, the way we describe it is, people who are like spiritually inclined to carry all their items in a milk crate. But this is
Yes.
a little bit more elegant of a milk crate.
Milk crate or
essentially.
like fishing bag, like a net fishing bag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's, it's every piece again, like we're doing before, is a different pattern piece kind of woven together in this way that shouldn't make any sense, but somehow, somehow it worked. It was a lot of samples and a lot of back and forth. But
Tell me about tell me about the hides that you're using.
yeah, sure. I am very interested. I've done a lot of research and a lot of years working with tanneries, because I make because we make everything in and around it. Being environmentally conscious when we're doing the tanning is super important. It's really important for me that none of our leather has any chromium in it or any sort of metals, just because we're using it and we're around it all day. So I use a fully veg tanned leather that has a wet white base. So it means that there is, even coming from the meat processing facility to the tannery, there's no chromium, no formaldehyde, nothing used. It's just cured with salt. So it comes that way. And then it goes through a full veg tanning process. So vegetable tanning is, there's a lot of tanning where it's vegetable retan. So that means it's been tanned vegetably, but it has some chemicals in the initial process. I'm really interested in finding and working with tanneries that don't do any of that. And then the vegetable tanning process, it goes through essentially the tannery we uses canas, which is a type of tree, and eucalyptus. And they actually like take all the bark off the trees, and they use the bark as the tannins. They ground it down into a powder, turn it into tannins, and then that gives the stiffness and kind of body feel to the leather. And then we use two different, in Lindquist, we use two different types of leather. We use a fully natural smooth vachetta, like a true raw vachetta, which we developed specially for us.
What's a vachetta?
So a vachetta is the kind of leather that over time gets really dark, and it's like kind of a nude color when it starts, but it gets really dark over time and it's smooth. We use that, and we got it specially made for us. And it's hard because it's a fully raw. It comes to us fully raw. We finish it in-house. So we massage it with oil, and we do a waterproofing technique to it and some other things here. And then we'll cut it and make it into bags. But it kind of, it has an ability it changes with the oxygen of the air. So it's like an oxygenating patina that happens. So as you use it, it's not just going to be affected by sunlight, but it's just kind of being open and in the air starts to shift it quickly into a little bit more of a darker brown, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I love a live finish, on brass, on leather, on, it's got to be something that will kind of mold and like continue with you and get more beautiful and different as you use it.
It's like with architecture too, like using building materials that will age with the weather and time, and like it's like, why cover a building surface up with like a render that has to be repainted, that you paint and has to be repainted, or why not like use like a raw kind of brick finish, or so like I can imagine it's something like that with bags and leather too.
It's super, it's one of those things, like there's a lot of different techniques out there for leather. A lot of people use like a plasticating, technique on the top that like essentially makes it turns it into plastic. And it's not for everyone, because some people aren't going to want their bags to kind of like evolve over time. But I think that it's beautiful, and it's something that you're going to see it a year from now. You're going to see it 10 years from now, the beautiful, kind of metamorphosis of your bag, to use our word.
Totally. That's the word. The word feels like a little bit woo saying metamorphosis, but it's a good word. It's like the theme of this year.
It's a weird year.
It's a weird year. It's been a crazy weird year. Yeah, I'm curious, like, what are your plans for Lindquist if it, if things go back to, relatively normal, like as in the fashion calendar can start back up again with the fashion weeks and the showrooms, and like, what do you plan? Do you plan to do like that kind of traditional kind of market, jumping from market, or do you think you'll do more of a timeless kind of business model that, I don't know. Yeah. What's the plan, man?
I think that this year is interesting, because I think it took everyone to pause and kind of think about, reevaluate the way that they're kind of churning through their wheels a little bit. I think a lot of us, like especially like on the creative side, we tend to like, we kind of tap out. We get like, exhaust, the calendar. Yeah. I was doing men's and women's before, and it's an exhausting schedule of creating newness and, kind of keeping up. Our plan, with our new line is fully, we're not identifying with gender at all with it. So we're not going to do all the objects are going to be kind of, able to be for everyone. And the other, our plan is to do launches 4 times a year. So we're going to kind of step outside of the fashion calendar.
That's so nice.
We're going to step outside of it. Nice. Going to see how that goes. Since we make it all in, we're kind of those insane people that make it all in-house, which is like its own, we can kind of only do what we can do. And our plan is to do kind of drops and launches 4 times a year, and then have a little bit in between. I do a collaboration each launch with 3 different other artist friends of mine that are usually in a different medium. And we're kind of bringing the leather element. Like this season, we did a hat. We did quite a few hats actually, but with Brooks Boswell in Portland, Oregon, who makes amazing hats. I know, yes. Brooks is amazing. And so we did leather braided elements and things for her hats. And then I'm doing a chair collaboration with really good friends of mine at O&G Studios out in, which is in Rhode Island. They make some of the most beautiful wood chairs. And so we're doing a leather version of that. And,
That's so
we just have some, to do, to work with friends of ours that we love. And we just make this little run of, and, it's been really fun creatively to like be around these other people that I admire so much and that I love their work, and then like have us work together and make something together.
Yeah, totally.
And see how it goes. Yeah.
That's like, I feel like what I've learned from this year is like, yeah, you can make plans. Yeah, sure, you can make plans, but those plans maybe they won't ever happen, or they'll be on pause for a while, or like. But now I just realized, like, enjoy. Like, just if you love making stuff, which we do, we love making stuff. We are people who love making stuff, just for ourselves. But like enjoy that process, because that's all you can do, and people see that for sure. Yeah, and that is what life is all about. Life's too short.
Yeah, it's way too short. Like our whole philosophy here is we just, we see what we can do every week, and we're not trying to like be the biggest bag company in the world, or like, but we just want to make these like beautiful things that truly like speak to being handmade. And we do kind of a different project each week, and it keeps it very fresh. And we're kind of, running it a little bit more like an art studio than a manufacturing. We have all the right and the equipment to do it like a manufacturing, but it's been a little bit, we kind of got different equipment that would make us a little bit more nimble, and able to kind of transition and do different things, because you just don't want to kind of get stuck in a rut of like making the same thing, hundreds and hundreds of them. And that's just not really interesting.
Also, just to butt in just for a second, just for folks listening, like equipment, when you're managing your own manufacturing and in-house, and you have your own equipment, that is the most expensive part of the setup. People need to understand that. It's very,
need to understand
that it's very costly to have machinery. I don't even know about leather machinery, but in a garment factory, machinery is like the biggest cost.
Yeah, we were very kind of careful with kind of getting as little equipment as we needed to be correct, but also equipment. Some of the stuff we kind of invested in pieces that would allow us to be a little bit more allow us to be kind of more innovative in a way. So not, taking, my husband's an engineer, so it's kind of a good collaboration of like, he's very like technical on his side. So using equipment that are more sustainable and also allow us to use like better yields and a little bit more like technology based, which is kind of interesting. I've always been kind of a, what's the word? Like a little bit of a Luddite. I'm a little bit more of a, a tactile hand person. So doing and kind of shifting to some of these things that aren't, I used to kind of have a rejection to it. And now I'm a little bit more, because they make things more, you can be more efficient with your, like our cutting, we can be so much more effective with our use and our yield, and all of that is, designing, we created the line also, and we designed into using some of the kind of more scrap parts of the leather. So designing items and things that could utilize those areas, which are sometimes a little bit less beautiful, but they're still leather. They're still this like gorgeous natural material. And so we do all of our handles, like everything is fully leather lined in the core as well. So we use a lot of those, and we can almost utilize the entire skin and yield on it, which is pretty cool.
That's definitely an aesthetic in itself for sure. Like I was curious about that because, I remember the low tuff bags being immaculate, so immaculate. And I can only imagine from one hide that you get, no matter how high quality that hide is, there's always going to be like marks or like some kind of, imperfection that you have to work around, because I know leather is so costly to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And there must be, as a result, like I can only imagine the amount of waste that companies have to deal with. Like that's all money as well, when they're making these kind of immaculate pieces.
Right. It's interesting. It's, there are little defects. And I think that when you get to a certain point and you realize where you can use that, if it's like the liner of a pocket or the bottom sole of a shoe or the inner core of a handle, or when you're kind of looking at a skin and you know where all those pieces can go. And how you can utilize them so that you can use it. The other thing we do too is we're working with, so we have scrap at the end, and it's all kind of these little strings, kind of between the cutouts of all the pieces for the bags. And we take those, and we're actually working with a couple artists this season to kind of figure out how do we utilize it? Like what can we make out of it? And I have this friend of ours who's been taking some of it by color and casting it in different materials or hide glues, and like compressing them and making them into like a solid. So we're going to try to be essentially use everything. Yeah. That's our goal. We're not there yet, but that's internally what we want to do, and kind of figure out a way to do that. So
that's very innovative, very smart. Using the old smarts.
Sometimes.
Nuggin. That's really rad, man. So how many like so right now you've just launched, how big is the range and what do you have involved in it?
We're going to be doing probably between 17 to 20 pieces each launch right now. That's like that's all I can kind of hand. Yeah, that's it is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 times a year.
Four times a year. They're not going to all be, they won't be different every time, but we will kind of sell out of one thing and then maybe bring it back for the next launch kind of thing. But we had like, it's interesting to kind of see what people like, and, and you kind of have to like see what people are into. I had, we made a bag that looks like a bean that was made.
Amazing. Whose head was that?
It's based off of my friend who loves beans.
Okay.
I was thinking about her, and she has a very like strong affinity for beans, and she's also in this time, she was made for quarantine time because she has so many pounds of beans at any moment in her house.
Beans are a magical food, by the way.
They are.
Very magical they are. Food. There is like a bean diet.
Yeah, she's very into beans. And so the faba was born out of that, and thinking of her and her storing and maybe her tendencies to kind of hoard beans in her house. So
I feel like that should be made into a folk song.
Disclosure, her head does not look like a bean. Full disclosure.
I could imagine that being like a beautiful like stop motion animation video clip with a cute folk song behind it, and the main character is like the bean head and she has her bean bag, but no pun intended. But so you have the bean bag, you call it a faba bag, like the faba
like it's a faba bean.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah. There's like signs when you drive through like Mexico and stuff, and it just says it has faba, and it just like essentially means we have beans here, and we just always kind of like that kind of casual,
That's
there's
lovely.
Beans.
That's lovely.
She always has beans. She needs that sign outside of her house, actually.
Rice and beans.
There are beans there. No, but it's it's important. Inspiration, as everyone like kind of comes in weird waves, and like sometimes you just are like, you go, and sometimes it's a little strange, and
you have to be open
for it.
Open to the universe. Just be open to anything. That is creativity. Openness.
Openness, truly. And kind of giving yourself the space and time to be, and like, and kind of have that, I think stepping off of, kind of the wheel of it and kind of creating your own time is, for me, it feels like the greatest luxury, and kind of being like, like having kind of versus having these kind of really strict deadlines of things. How do we kind of create in a way? We're kind of in a pause point anyway, so it feels like the perfect time to kind of experiment there.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I think I found like that to be a good thing and a challenging thing at the same time this year. I feel like this year with the like zero amount of travel that we've been doing and working from home. How are you
adjusting for that?
Oh my God.
You used to travel so much.
It's so hard.
I like feel that way too. I'm like, this like being stationary is like the first time ever.
It's so hard, and because you find that your friends and your source of inspiration and your schedule was kind of fixed, and it kind of moved around the world at different points of time. You knew, I have to get this collection done, or I have to select my fabrics at this time because I need to be in Paris for Premiere Visions, or I need to, like, I felt like I was much more organized when I was traveling all the time, because I was forced to get things done by this time. But now that I'm not traveling, it's like, it's like every day is like it kind of like blurs into the next day, and
it's Groundhog Day. Yeah,
it's Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day every day, and like there's a less sense of urgency to like just get that done before I leave the country, or like. So I found it really hard, man. Like, and also the way that it's turned out is that traveling has kind of let me see. I have my best friends are kind of scattered all over the world, and I got to see them, on the market circuit, every 6 months at least. I would get to see like the people that I love the most. I'd get to hang out with you, like, so it's been like, it's been weird. It's not the same, this screen thing, this like Zoom thing.
And also, are we going to be able to, when we see each other, all like touch each other in that way? I'm like worried that everyone's going to be like, so worried about, and I feel like we all, especially like as in my friend group, we're so, our love for one another is so like,
strong.
It's so physical, and it's like, in its like way, and, and I get worried. I hope we can get back to that. I know we can, but it's just like this situation.
Well, like, what's it like for you on the East Coast right now? Because in Thailand here, like things are pretty much back to normal. They're like that.
Not back to normal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but our country is closed still, so people can't go in and out really. But that's why it's normal. But the minute that they do start letting people come in and out, it will be back to that.
We've kind of set up, in our especially like with our studio, it's only the five of us. We've kind of podded as a group, and that's been interesting. I've used to live such a, like, I love being social. I love, seeing friends, and, I'm a triple fire sign. I just like want to like do things all the time. And this has been an interesting, like, kind of like take a step back from that and like focus on, and I've been able to put a lot of that into like work in an interesting way, and like kind of into my studio. And it's a good time of focus. I hope I do think I'm learning from this time to focus in a way that I had never before. I used to get kind of distracted by all the shiny thing here, shiny thing there, event here, go here. Yeah. And I think there's a certain amount of that you get kind of tapped out sometimes too. You kind of pour so much of yourself out, and there needs to be there's this nice time now of taking a little bit of break. Here still, definitely where we all live, we're very like masked, when we're doing anything. But it's pretty like, we're not really doing much. We're just kind of like going to work and going home.
Yeah, right.
And like walk and being out, I feel very lucky that I live in Rhode Island. We have like beaches and, amazing like woods, and, it's not very, it's not super populated. So it's there is more space, in that way. Yeah. Spend a lot of time with my dog, my elderly animal that I have, and
Yeah, I feel like, I liked your point just before about like forcing you to focus on like a different aspect of designing. I think I can relate for sure that, it's forced me to slow down and be much more detail orientated.
Me too.
Much more detail orientated. And also like, I feel like for a lot of people, the direction of creativity is gonna be very exciting, actually, like for the upcoming season.
Too.
Yeah, it's gonna be
so
super
too.
interesting.
We spent the summer, for the first, which feels very luxurious now looking back at it, but we spent like the first couple of months before we opened testing things. So I essentially spent the first 6 months, I think 4 months actually, I got thread from all over places. I got leathers from different tanneries that I wanted to see. I got, and I tried to find the most eco-friendly glue, a glue that we use. The leatherworking glue is always known for being this very not great chemical, and we switched it to one that is more sustainable and and a water-based version of it, which has been really great. But doing all the testing and kind of making decisions around not necessarily definitely necessarily making them more sustainable from our standpoint as the workers and the makers, because to me that's creating a space that's super great for all of us to be here is going to make great products. Yeah. We do all of our stuff, all of my bags always with this, I want every single one of us has our own little symbol. So we have our own stamp.
Oh,
and
lovely.
Whoever works on the bag, once they're done with it, they hit it with their stamp.
Put that little mark on it.
Yeah. And so you can, kind of tell the story of the object and who handled it and who made it exactly. It just kind of gives that life to it, and also it's a sense of pride. It's if you're putting your name on it,
you gotta own something. That. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's good, and so taking that time to kind of I tried thread from 15 different places that I had been wanting to try, all over the world. I ended up getting my thread is coming from France right now.
Beautiful.
Which is pretty crazy that I'm doing that, but it's better. It's
Why
just
not?
It's better. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's a beautiful thread that, a lot of people, not a lot, but a couple very specific high-end French brands use. And I was I want to try it. I want to see it, see how it works. And it truly is better.
Yeah.
It's
I totally can understand, there's a reason why specific places are known for making specific things. The podcast just before this, I was talking to Alex from Blue Maid. I don't know if you know Alex and Lily.
I love Alex.
Okay,
and
Alex,
Lily. Yes.
So we were talking about the best linens in the world and all the different variations of flax plants from all the different regions of the world. Right. So you can get real nerdy about that. And I think what's nice about this year is that I feel like consumers have also slowed down and considering what they're purchasing. I know with your project, it's very new, but you do have a great following already, just as yourself. So I feel like people will follow you wherever you go. But I feel like people have definitely been supporting properly made, beautifully made, well-designed objects in a bigger way this year. And that gives me hope. So much
Me
hope.
too. It gives me so much hope too. I think that there's a lot of people that are making, I always love a really challenging. I don't even want to call it that, but like a really specific customer, like someone who's like asking all the questions.
Yeah.
I have a couple of those, and it's like, and they want to nerd out in it as much as I do. And I think that that's always so exciting because I know that when they get it, they're going to love it. And I'm like, we're doing a thing that's like for these. It's not for everyone. It's for them. And it's like,
that's a special relationship for sure.
Yeah.
That's
and some people would probably find it exhausting, but I love it. I love, if you want to talk about thread, I will talk about thread and leather with you forever,
Beautiful.
But yeah.
Yeah, that is a beautiful way, I think, to hit 1 hour. And that was such a nice conversation. Thank you for explaining, so many elements that make your universe. It was really, really, it was so fun and beautiful. And I want to thank you. For people out there who want to check it out, how do they do that?
We have a website. It's www.linquist-object.com. We'll be doing a second launch in the middle of November. So there'll be some
exciting
newness. Coming up
Christmas.
Very soon. For Christmas. Yep. I guess so. Yep.
Yeah.
I know. And it's, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's always, I miss seeing you. So this is great.
I miss you. I miss all the pals.
I know, we're all like.
But thanks, Lindy, and catch you. I don't know, whenever I catch you next. I want to come back to New York soon. But all right, everybody. See ya.
Thank you.